Beautiful.
We already started already. Hello, everybody. It's Wallace with Warphammer.
And Mike,
Yes.
coincidentally with Warphammer, crazy thing.
Yeah,
Odds
he
were-
happens.
Yeah.
He happens. No relation.
Well, what were the odds we would run into each other on a Zoom call? It's just crazy. Thought I was just
Yeah.
messaging random numbers and you show up. That's amazing.
And on Slanesh Day of all days.
The very special 6th episode of Warped Wednesday. I'm excited. Slanesh is with us. The Dark Prince has blessed us. We're going to have a good time today.
We're gonna have a good time. Unfortunately, there's not too many Slanesh related things happening right now. And what I mean by that is we are on the precipice of a couple of pretty major releases.
Yeah, it's a weird time to be talking 40K. Well, let's just recap it. The Nephilim mission book came out, or it doesn't even come out yet. It comes out this Saturday, but it was all like the NDA was lifted last week. There's rumors of points changes and even a potential data slate coming up, which I'm not sure about that. I want to see it with my own eyes before I believe anything. But I mean, that would be crazy. And then, of course, we have the codex we are both so excited for coming up sooner rather than later. I think Warcom said it's coming up for pre-order this Saturday. Does that sound right to you? I'm losing track of days.
And we're talking about the Legions of Votan, right?
Yeah, the Legions of Votan. The Chaos Squat Marines. I mean, there's a lot going on. But here at Warphammer, we're here to break it all down for you. Let you know what's hype in the world of chaos. Let's see, Wallace, before we get started, what's kind of been your hobby participation in the last week? What have you been painted anything, built anything, read anything?
My hobbying has slowed down a bit. I did slam a truck door on my pinky finger. And so my pinky finger is currently broken, which has not entirely killed my ability to hobby, but has hampered it somewhat.
Hampered it.
I have hand surgery tomorrow.
Yeah.
And they're going to put a bunch of metal in my finger.
Yeah. Well, Wallace is a strong guy. If you're worried about his finger, you should have seen the car door. That really got the worst of it.
Well, yeah. I slammed my finger in there and I was like, yes, the ecstasy of pain.
Beautiful.
But yeah, I'm going to have this hand more or less out of hobbying commission for a little bit. That doesn't mean I'm not hobbying. It just means I'm hobbying less. So I'm kind of.
What do you mean?
I was gonna bring a pretty big reiteration of Hot Goat Summer or Disciples of Bellicor to a tournament this weekend.
Sure.
But I don't want to be moving that many models around a table when you have a hand out of commission. And like when I'm playing games, I got handfuls in both hands of the models I'm moving around the table. Like if I'm splitting orders, I got them between fingers. I'll be like, this is the blues, this is the brims, and I'll be like,
yeah. And plus, the great thing about having two hands when you play 40K is one hand can hold the models, one hand can hold the beer. Now you have to choose. You can't do both at the same time. You just have to hold the beer in your mouth and just kind of drink it while you're playing, which is pretty difficult.
I'm a pro gamer, so actually I hold the beer like between my legs. So I have the models in both hands, and if I want to take a sip, I just bend all the way down.
Okay, I've always been wondering, is it a beer bottle between your legs, or are you happy to see me? Now we know, just in time for the Slanesh episode, Wallace.
Just in time.
What are you running then? If you're not running a billion Zangors or a billion demons, what are you running?
I am running something easier to move around with one hand, which will be four models. I'm bringing 4 Chaos Knights event. That's it. Whole list.
That's exciting. So just to clarify for anyone listening, it's a 2K, 2,000 point ITC event. It's not like a 1,000 point league. It's not like a 500 point league. It's a 2,000 point tournament, and Wallace is going to show up with 4 models. How are you feeling about that?
I'm feeling great. So I wanted to outsource a little bit of community help. Yeah. So I went ahead and I threw one out there to shout out to the Warphammer Discord.
Throw up your W's
over there. Gonna get the W. So I threw one out there. I was like, hey guys and gals, and all the lovely chaos spawn and everything else between. I need a list, and I need this to be met. These are the restrictions. The restrictions are needs to have a Knight Tyrant, needs to have 4 big boys, only 4.
Yeah.
and I need each of them to have a different god mark for flavor purposes.
Fortunately, with Disciples of Bellicor, people in our Discord are very familiar making lists with arbitrary and unfair restrictions. Am I right? Am I right?
Yeah. So this is my army of renown.
Yeah.
It's only got restrictions, but the benefit is you can play it with one hand.
That's true.
So that's the benefit section. It's kind of like how the Warp Meld pack benefit section just lists a restriction in it. It's just like you get Brotherhood of Sorcerers.
Yeah.
So I'm doing that. 4 Chaos Knights, each has to be a different god, which means we're getting 4 different blessings.
Wait, hold up. Did you count an undivided knight? Like were you allowed to
No undivided knights, not allowed.
Actual god marks. Wow.
Nurgle, Slanesh, Zenich, some other 4th thing.
Malal. Yeah, Malal.
And
yeah,
there were that was my request. So I had a couple people respond. There was a lot of different takes on how. That's the thing that's crazy is with all of the restrictions in the limited model line, you think you kind of get a lot of samey lists. We actually got a lot of diversity in how you would do that with the 4 knights. Well, what we settled on, or what I've settled on, I shouldn't say we. They had no say in the matter. I want to do a House Kamentis list.
Okay, I'm into it.
And I'm very excited about my House Kamentis list because it's 1,995 points on the nose, and I think that's pretty dang close. I think that's for 4 models.
I'm looking through the Discord to see. Was it the list by JJ ADNED?
Yeah.
Sorry, drawing blank on the actual name. But yeah, I'll say he's actually been on the big model. He was running a lot of like Nurgle Demon Engines with Knights before, so he's a good person to talk to about big models. So shout out to. I also see Swerve came through. Swerve has been grinding the tournament scene. He's doing well, so shout out to him. Let's see, because Moses Jones came through with a good list. That looks pretty sweet. And Wingo, actually a friend from formerly in Alaska with us, came through with the
former Alaska boy.
Yeah, Alaska's got a lot of great players, but we don't want to get too far off topic. I will say that all lists look great. I love the list you've chosen. What kind of secondaries are you going to take with a four model list?
You see, that is where I think this episode will be helpful. So I'm a competitive player, but I'm also kind of a airhead. So I have read like 6 or 7 times the new secondary mission pack. And as soon as I'm done with the video that I'm watching about it or listening to, or the thing I'm read, as soon as it leaves in front of me, I have infinite level object permanence. It just filters out of my brain.
Sure.
So I like vaguely remember the ones that there are, but then I quickly forget them. And I feel like it's going to be that way for a while. I don't have the repetition to get to a table and be like, okay, I know I'm going to do this one. And I'm probably going to say to people a lot of times that I'm doing ones that don't exist anymore. And we'll be like, hey, man,
that's true. Like, I took Stranglehold, and they'll be like, Wallace, you dumb, Stranglehold's not a thing. They'll be like, fine, I'll take Gangbusters. And they're like, that was 8th edition ITC packet.
I'll take Death by 1,000 Cuts. And they'll say, no, you can't do that. I'll say, let's draw our Maelstrom cards, see how the turn goes.
Yeah. And you'll be like, I'm going to cast Invisibility on the knight. And they're call you over. You're going to try to surfboard your knight on a train piece. Shout out to the Geomancy table.
Got a snap fire at my knight.
Okay, so 4 knights. Let's see. Let me guess. You're probably going to take Grind Them Down. It's still a thing. You're going to take not Storm of Darkness anymore, because that got FAQ today to be capped at 12, which is really unfortunate. I think the fake Stranglehold is actually pretty good, because you only have to hold half the objectives. You just have to put Dread Range on the others, and with those big bases in 12 inches, potentially 15 inches if you spice it up. So you're going to take the Dread one. You're going to take Grind Them Down. Do you have a Psyker in the list? I can't remember.
No.
Do you have any summoning points in the list?
I have 5 points.
You can summon an Understrength Brimstone Horror and lose all your Battleforged bonuses. Yes, that's the plan.
I can. So, I'm just going to run at them with big knights and say, Unga Bunga, shoot them with the guns, hit them with the hands.
True. Maybe even
gonna
kick
be a
him with the
time.
feet.
Just yeah, slap him with the feet.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a good time. I don't really anticipate to be winning this particular event, but sometimes lists surprise you. Sometimes I get to the table and I'm like, well, I'm not really doing secondary super well, but they won't
Yeah.
be either. So
It's fair.
maybe I just hold it to a game of the primary. Maybe I just table you and
Yeah.
I win the game because you're tabled. That happens.
Cool.
So,
Or maybe you get too drunk off your beer warming up between your legs and can't even finish the game. You never know. Lots of options.
Yeah. So I'm playing a list with one hand. It's got 4 models. I'm really excited. Playing
Cool.
House Kamentis because they are the most murdery of the houses, and I think their house trait is really interesting and fun.
So for those for listeners at home, what's the Kamentis trait?
So yeah, it's a solid upgrade to what Infernal Houses already do.
Mm-hmm.
Is you can take wounds to get benefits.
Yeah.
And you can choose to take 1 wound and get a random D3 benefit, or you can choose to take D3 and pick one. Well, Kamentis says, no. It actually says our thrones that our characters have put their brains into to power these robots.
Little tentacles coming out, connecting into
the
synapse stuff. Yeah.
It says they have demons in them, and that my duders that are powering the robots, that they've made a pact with those demons, which means mechanically in the game, I can take 1 wound and instead of get a random trait on a D3, I believe I get a reroll.
Yeah, I think so.
Trait. Or if I take the D3, this is the spicy thing, you get to pick 2.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, I'm getting both the movement trait pick, and the transhuman on my Horn Knight, or +3 movement and +1 to wound on one of my weapons.
And the great thing is you pick it every time in your command phase. So you'll have the option, you'll be able to assess the board state. And with only 4 models, I trust you're going to make some good decisions because you have plenty of thinking time. You'll be able to pick the perfect 2 out of 3 every time. And I'm excited to see how it goes. Because
and also,
go ahead.
I was just going to say, also, last cool thing about Kamentis, one thing that's always got me licking my lips looking at it, it was the spice I never thought I could touch, was they have a warlord trait.
Okay.
That allows...
Most armies do.
Well, but most armies do, and then it's not that good.
That's true.
It's called like Dread Hunter, and it allows you to, once per game, one of your knights can select one of their weapons, gets full rerolls to hit and to wound, and they increase the damage of that weapon by 1.
Mm-hmm.
And that actually is not...
That's spicy.
Well, it's spicy, but you also can do it on a Knight Tyrant, which most traits cannot be put on Knight Tyrants.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the one house that does the Tyrant well, I think. Because you're like Ectoplasma, Decimator...
Well, are you taking the Flamer or the Gun Tyrant?
I'm probably going to bring the Ectoplasm Decimator gun. I don't know.
Well, like the Castellan version, basically, not the Valiant.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I can make that gun really, really scary.
Yeah.
So I'm excited. It's going to be a fun event.
That's true. Yeah, the one thing is the Kamentis stratagem, I think, is about putting war dogs into strategic reserves. Obviously, we're running 4 big knights. It's not going to matter. But I think the ability, as you say, to basically for almost nearly free, get a transhuman on the knight or D3 select 2 of the benefits. They're really good. And I will say, because you're hurting yourself and doing more damage to them every turn, you're just going to end the game pretty quickly. So you're going to have, it's a very good game for a one-handed gamer to play.
Yes. And hopefully not too much bookkeeping on the, am I worthy or not?
That's true. I'll just write down the start, Wallace is worthy. It won't have any in-game benefit, but it'll make it a lot easier to bookkeep.
Yeah.
Have a lot of fun.
Just, play it by ear. We're gonna have fun. So this event I'm attending, you will be attending. Tell me about what you're doing. Tell me about your hobby stuff. Tell me about what you're thinking about. So what are you thinking about, Brady?
I have the word of the Dark Gods has overtaken me. Lorgar is coming to my heart. Recently got some possessed. Let me see if I can get them to appear. I'm so possessed the old kit. I mean, the current kit, they're not the new kit. But I think they're amazing models. I've always wanted to get some more possessed. They're looking really spicy in the next codex from the leaks. So I've got 15 of these bad boys to paint. Super excited. And I know the kits look kind of goofy. I know you've said that. I think a lot of people have said that. I don't know, they have kind of like an old school charm. Like when I paint berserkers, they look so goofy compared to like modern models. I don't know, they have like a certain like I look at it and feel like there's like years of history in them, you know? So I'm just really excited to paint them up. Um, Got some really cool demonic bits you can also use on other stuff that come in the kit. So really excited to do that. In terms of the list I'm running, it depends on a few different things. One is because I've gotten an advanced copy of the codex, just working with a great team at Goonhammer. We're going to be doing, when the codex comes out, we're going to be doing a release. Would love to be able to work them into my army in some shape, form, or fashion. But barring that, I think Thousand Suns are looking really interesting. I've gotten a lot of experience with them. And part of it too is honestly, I'm not that concerned about the list because you're going to be there, come down. I know a few friends like yourself that have kind of moved away from Anchorage. Like I know Danny is coming back. John hasn't been able to attend a tournament in a while. There's a lot of great guys around Anchorage that are coming to this event. So I just kind of want to hang out. I'll show up there early, but grab breakfast with people. We're just gonna have a good time. And honestly, between the two of us, I kind of feel like I'm number 5 right now in CSM, but I only have 3 scores as opposed to everyone's 4, and they take your top 4 scores. So I literally just need to show up, like register as CSM. I'll jump up to number 2 or number 3, our ranked CSM or chaos player, excuse me. So just go show up. I don't really care too much of the specific standing. I just need a 4th score, and we're gonna have a good time. I'm really excited. Whatever happens, I'm gonna do an article on it once the tournament's over. So check out Warhammer next week, everyone. For
I'm gonna
another
go out of my way to make sure that you get disqualified, so you don't get those points.
Well, maybe I'll show up with a few too many beers because I have 2 hands for beers. Maybe I'll end up getting disqualified myself. They're gonna be like Mike, 10 VP for stumbling around during the game.
Honestly, stumbling around in the game is not going to get you DQ'd.
Or the trick is pretend to be stumbling around. They're like, oh, he's drunk. It's an easy win. They're not gonna stick to their strategy, and then you secretly are big braining them the whole time. We've got options.
Honestly, that's how it feels every time I bring a goofy list. People wander into the game and they're like, it's gonna be easy. This guy's got could be a Thrax. And I'm like, well, I'm gonna gamer you. You're gonna get gamered. Yeah. It's a pro gamer moment coming up here, bud.
Yeah. Thrax, my favorite models in the game. I so badly hope whenever they do a points update, he gets a drop because I feel he could honestly be good in the meta. I feel like we're starting to shift. We shifted towards Tyranids, towards like long range anti-tank. But I feel we're gradually seeing a shift back. I would love a reason to run him. What an amazing model.
It's an amazing model. Specifically, my model of him is amazing because he has a top hat and a bow tie.
He looks so cool.
It's my best painted model as well. Yeah. I put an unbelievable amount of time, effort, and creativity into making sure he was and will always be the centerpiece of my army.
He will be.
If he ever does get a points cut, I'll bring him. If he doesn't, as soon as we get a new Chaos Demons Codex, I will
say the one thing is they did say in Nephilim when they changed it, your first super heavy auxiliary detachment is now 0 CP if it matches your warlord instead of 1 CP. So you can actually bring him like in a demon's army or even a Nurgle army overall, like a Death Guard army for 0 CP. I think that would be amazing. Just again, it wouldn't be the most competitive option. It would break. Well, I wouldn't do a Death Guard because you lose all your mono faction stuff. But a demon's army, especially Nurgle demon's army, you can bring him for 0 CP. I think that's a lot of fun. I think Sarachniel is actually pretty spicy. They're just overcosted right now, so I'm really interested to see what happens with that. Because
if the Scabiathrax model stays exactly as is, but we get a sufficient number of demon points reductions, I will very much consider bringing a narrative Demons of Nurgle list.
Yeah.
Well, I've done that in the past, even when they were worse than they are now, and I still had a lot of fun, and I still thought it was okay.
Because for those that are tracking at home, you can still use the slotted vial piper tricks. He has the Great and Clean One keyword to get the advance and charge. He's got this beautiful auto-hitting flamer, this nice 3+D3 damage melee. And of course, he's a tanky boy. He's tanky with the best of them. Let's talk. I want to make sure we cover this episode, some of the secondary changes in Nephilim.
Yes.
Is that how it's said? Is it the Nephilim mission pack, or is it Nephilim or Nephilim?
So, this is the part where we audio clip in the video segment from the Diablo games, where the Angel of Death, Mothael, uses the word Nephilim. Really cool. And actually, if you send me this video, clip after this, after we're done, Mike. I'll edit out what I said and I'll just put it in there because it's cool.
Okay, or maybe we won't, and people just have to listen to us talk about the boring side of making videos. Whatever, could go either direction.
Well, I mean, I could leave this in. I don't care. Clip it.
Clip it, I dare you.
Clip it.
Let's talk secondaries.
Let's talk secondaries.
I think secondaries really shake it up. I wrote an article that was pretty well received. I will say I did make a mistake. I'd originally written in the Death Guard section, I was going to recommend Plague Marines and Rhinos and Mortarian's Anvil. I changed it, like finishing at 3 a.m. at night. I changed it to Terminus S because I thought about it. People on Reddit and some comments on social media were not very happy. They're like, this idiot doesn't know you can't put vehicles in Terminus S. I just forgot.
Cheater!
The end. Cheater, yeah. My busted Terminus S army. But in terms of Death Guard, I think Death Guard secondaries look fantastic. What was your first impression?
I love me some free 12s. I love me some free 15s.
Actually, I don't want your first impression. I want like your fifth impression once you've had time to think.
No, I've had a lot of time to think about this. I've had many minutes of thinking.
Cool.
Spreading some sickness around.
Beautiful.
Beautiful. Give me 3 victory points, I believe.
Yeah, every time. And the great news, so if people aren't tracking the small words and details of this objective, spread the sickness got changed. You can start it even if an opponent's on the objective, which is amazing. You just have to control it. So if you walk some poxwalkers on their OBSEC, you can probably control the objective. You can start it even on contested objectives. But also you've lost the ability to do mortal wounds to yourself, which is amazing. Because it always felt so bad if you had like unit of Terminators that had to do it or something, and you roll D3 mortal wounds on yourself, and you take 3 mortal wounds, and you're like, that's 55 points of Terminators gone. One of the reasons I don't like Grand Loft Terminators on my list. But anyway, amazingly improved. I think the real all-star, like one of the secret all-stars of the Nephilim packet, is the Fleeing Vectors secondary for Death Guard. So good now. So good. So beautiful.
Yes.
Wallace, can I ask you an honest question? Do you remember the Fleeing Vector secondary? Because I'm seeing that face, I'm seeing a bit of confusion.
No, I do. I do. I don't remember the verbatim rules. I just remember reading it and being like, oh, that's
okay. Well, I got it. I got this secondary tattooed on my arm since then. So let me just quickly remind for people at home. It got changed. It used to be some just horrible morale thing that was like weirdly capped per turn, which you were never going to score it anyway, so I don't know why it had a turn cap. But now it got changed. In a turn, you get a VP if you kill 7 or more models in a battle round. Easy peasy. You also gain a VP if 7 or more models were killed by plague weapons, which again, almost your entire army is plague weapons. Even like the las cannon variants on the Plague Burst Crawler are plague weapons. So basically any models you kill, so that's almost guaranteed 2 VP a battle round. Plus you gain a VP for models, I don't know if it's per model or like per 5 models, but there's some sort of thing where if models run, you gain additional VP. Plus, if models run after their unit suffered losses from plague weapons, you gain additional VP. So it's like a nearly guaranteed-ish 8 to 10 that can also spike up to 15 without a crazy amount of luck.
Like I said, anything that hits that like 12 to 15 range, I feel good about, and I think that is up there. I think you can definitely build to have the other one where at the end of the game you get points for like bubonic.
The spoiled ground, which got changed to Death Guard instead of Bubonic Astartes, which is amazing because now your Chaos spawn. Now basically like things like Poxwalkers can score for you. There's all sorts of possibilities opened up. Great third secondary.
I think you can build for it. I want to see I want to see the points because as they are in their current iteration at this exact moment, if everything stays the same, I would still say that was enough of a shot of the arm to get him from like a C tier up to a B tier. Like they're not going to be they're not going to be overpowering the top factions unless there's player edge going in there.
Yeah.
But the fact that you can play the secondary game now means that you have a lot of strategies that you already want to do. Like you want your models to survive to the end of the game. That's like what Nurgle does. Nurgle's got pretty tanky units.
Exactly.
To risk it onto the last anymore. However,
spoiled ground is still amazing in the matchups we want to take to the last. There's just such a well-rounded secondary. You were saying, however?
Well, what I was saying is essentially like you lost to the last, which would sometimes feel kind of bad because that was a 15. But you have things that are close to being that free 15, and most other factions do not. So if you just grind it out in a longer game, you know, you're playing with banners, you're protecting your home field objectives, you're camping on them. tanky units like, hey, just a quick shout out to that possessed list that I think is.
Let's go possessed. Shout out, throw your possessed arms up in here, people.
Very possessed and chat.
throw your P's up for possessed. But yeah, I think possessed are looking fantastic. There's so many units now. That's any Death Guard unit that can score to spoiled ground. So beautiful. So I think all 3 secondaries are viable. Warp Ritual, I think, is really good for Death Guard in a lot of missions.
Oh, for sure.
Banners is fantastic. Psychic Interrogation now, if they have the characters that can come towards you, fantastic. You can get some VP. I think Death Guard are looking in a really great position. Let's talk Chaos Knights, because I mentioned at the start of the video, there was the FAQ that came out today. Chaos Knights got slightly nerfed on their secondaries. How are you feeling about those?
I still think Chaos Knights are very firmly like, I'm tiering things now. This is a tiering video.
Sure.
I think Chaos Knights are still in the A tier. I think they're top factions in the game. And I think the nerf that they received was probably necessary. And some people might disagree with that because Chaos Knights aren't putting up like crazy numbers.
Yeah.
But I would say they're not putting up crazy numbers yet. I've still been seeing people playing a lot of the builds that were kind of the anticipated builds that I don't even think are the best builds for Chaos Knights right now, and doing quite well with them.
Yeah.
I think the secondaries being easy for them is just a mistake. If you make secondaries easy for Knights, they're going to have such an easy time on most tables.
Yeah. Well, I will say the fact that they basically have a stranglehold replacement in a world where basically everyone else lost stranglehold is fantastic. That's exactly, as you're playing Chaos Knights, what you want to do is move forward. You want to play aggressively. You want to flip objectives. So getting rewarded for that, beautiful. I think the one about killing units in different sections of the table, I think is really solid. I think sometimes grind them down can almost be a mistake for War Dog heavy lists, because you can lose, I don't know if people have played War Dog lists, you can lose like 5 or 6 in a turn if things go a certain way. Like War Dogs are very susceptible to losing large numbers.
Yep.
So having that is it's kind of like grind them down, a little less upside, I guess. But on the downside, like you're not gonna have as much risk if like turns you keep getting zeroed out. You're almost always going to score some, other than maybe the first turn. And I think that Storm of Darkness being, as you say, it could be a pretty fair thing that's not like a near auto 15. Well, auto 12 to 15. Now it's like a 9-ish, maybe. Perfectly fine for a third secondary in this new world.
Part of it too is the game for Chaos Knights gets, specifically Chaos Knights, because you're running, I'm assuming, War Dog heavy.
Yeah.
Gets so easy if you are the person who is going second. If you're going second in a game of Warhammer and you are Chaos Knights, you are in a beautiful position.
Mm-hmm.
You get to set the, like, your opponent has to act in order to keep up, because you get that end of round scoring turn 5.
With all this OPSEC, fast OPSEC too.
Right. So things like grind become so much more easy to manipulate.
Yeah, grind is fantastic going second. Yeah.
It allows you to play more conservatively, and you can kind of play like a trade game with your Knights, which is something that your opponent wants you to be doing. I think Knights are insane when you go second. I think if you go first in a game,
I think they're fantastic going first too. It just depends on it's a lot more matchup dependent. But there's some matchups where you get a bunch of War Dogs, you go first, you ram them all, advance them all up, or get angles, and then just turn 2, you just table them, kind of.
Right. If you go first, you're setting up for the following turn. You're setting up your firing lanes. You're setting up charge angles.
Yeah.
But if you go second, I feel like a lot of times you've put yourself into a commanding position.
Yeah, you're in a good spot either way. Let's talk, just in the interest of keeping things moving. Let's talk demons, because I think that's kind of where both of us kind of made our names as 40k players as demons. I haven't played them as much recently, but I think we still have a lot of love and we still practice the faction regularly. I think reality rebels, which you say like reality rebels, it sounds like an amazing punk band, but reality rebels, one of the best secondaries in the game, basically score 10 to 15 without ever leaving your side of the board. I think that's pretty undisputed at this point. How do you feel about the other 2 secondaries?
Yeah, reality Red Bulls is pretty good.
Yeah.
I like all of them, honestly. I think it's important that they're not all auto takes, but even the I Run Away one got
that's fine.
a lot better. Like it's good. It's a
I think
good secondary.
you could easily take that against lists where you're going to kill a lot of models, or the fact that it's uncapped. If you're playing something like Orcs, which again, the rumor is boys are going down, going to score 15 basically every game against that army. There's a lot of armies like Guard, for example, a lot of like MSU armies where you kill a few guys until they're risk of failing morale, especially with the leadership debuffs we have. Perfectly fine secondary. And I think really Psychic Interrogation is kind of the third faction secondary for demons in a sense. So we don't need 3 banging secondaries. We just need 1 or 2. Because we're basically always taking that, especially with the fact it generates CP now. You're always going to take like demons every single game. You're taking reality. You're going to drink your reality Red Bull, and you're going to psychically interrogate them, and you're going to figure out the third one from there. Banners is fine too.
Banners is okay.
Yeah, Rod's not the worst thing in the world, although it's tougher to have a CP as demons to reserve people.
I don't think you need. So the way I've been playing R&D even before this was a lot of times I'd start the Furies that I want to do it. Units I want to do it on the board.
Yeah.
And then I would teleport them around with Shrouded Step if you are going Disciples. Because you usually don't have important things to Shrouded.
Well, you can't Shrouded Step and then do the action just because the timing triggers in the movement phase.
True. Yeah, but you can like throw like things in the corner and then they have to go deal with it or you're getting robbed.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah,
like I've been doing that and it felt
you can always throw a Fury unit turn 4 when the board's kind of thinned out, and they'll do it turn 5 in the back corner. Or they're fast enough, honestly, you can move them up behind a wall, and as long as it's within 6 inches of the line, they'll be over 6 inches away when they move 12, so they'll be in a good spot there.
At that point, the horrors are in their face and they have to deal with the horror blob. And a lot of the tables, specifically like GW tables, if that's the event you're playing at, you have a corner, like this beautiful corner that you can pop them into. So it just makes the game a lot harder on your opponent. They have to screen them out. And also, I've said this before, I don't think demons are that CP hungry for things in-game. So I feel fine spending all 6 in the pregame.
I would never start 6 just going to have 1 CP to reserve people if needed. But I do think, on the whole, you're probably in a really good spot starting with 1 or 2. Also, we kind of covered Death Guard demons. Let's talk Thousand Suns, because I think there's definitely some interesting changes to their secondaries. Let's start with Wrath of Magnus. That's the big one that everyone's talking about. What are your thoughts on Wrath of Magnus?
Wrath of Magnus is a thing you can take in every game.
Every single game. Magnus, you can take it playing Sigmar, you can take it playing Battletech, you can take it playing chess. Always take Wrath of Magnus.
Essentially, you can't literally do that because they have to have 1 Psyker. But with the reduction of other second options, the need to bring a Psyker is actually even higher now, I would argue.
So many people want to take a Psyker for Psychic Interrogation, which means you're going to be printing. Well, you can take this probably easily over 2/3 of games these days. It's
free real estate. So here's the deal. As it existed before, it was also free real estate, but not free real estate every game. So what I mean is, when I would bring Wrath of Magnus, I would know that I'm getting 15 victory points with this. As soon as I picked it, I was like, that's 15. Because my opponent would have maybe 1 psychic guy, and I would just obliterate that guy with targeted smites, like Harlequins or whatever. I would just send out my psychic dude, just obliterate him with smites.
Little Armon Zinch's Firestorm can easily pick
Firestorm is an each, Malefic, Charge, whatever. I'd kill that guy. And then I just kill 1 model a turn with psychic powers, and I have gotten 15 victory points. Which is cool. I like that. I'm about that. So that was how it worked previously. However, there were certain matchups where you didn't really want it. Like if you were in a Thousand Suns matchup against like Grey Knights or something.
Okay, I can see that. Also, I feel like Grey Knights players just collectively, they're amazing at spiking 5-ups on their Mortal Wound, Feel No Pain. It's just like a faction trait. Like to become a good Grey Knights player, you have to just roll incredibly high. I swear they roll their 5-ups like 3-ups. And the great thing about it is you can look at your opponent's list at the start of the game and ask them like what categories their spells are in. And oftentimes like they'll literally only have like 2 blessings if they have 1 psyker, and they'll have no maledictions, and they'll have no witch fires. So you're like, cool, I'm literally going to score 10 plus. Like you literally can't score less than 10 on that.
And as an example of when Wrath felt bad, you'd run into an Eldar player You'd
Yeah.
choose Wrath, you'd go first, you'd push out, and you'd kill what you can see, which was maybe like...
Or maybe nothing a lot of the times on turn 1. Maybe nothing.
Right. Maybe you snipe an angle on like a unit of Banshees or something if you like Umbral Crystal some Terminators or something. But then they know how many models you killed, and they can choose, hey, if you had a low kill turn, they could choose to deny your Wrath.
Yeah.
Or if you went first and you didn't have a target, you would know that you're getting a 12.
Yeah.
So those are times when Wrath wouldn't be perfect. So before,
it's much better going second than first. Yeah.
And it wasn't a very interactive one because a lot of time your opponent didn't feel like they had any way to beat it. That said, the new version is one that I look at and say, I'm probably not getting a full 15 on this if they have more than one caster.
Yeah.
I'll still do well because it checks for 3 different categories. It checks for witchfires, it checks for blessings, and it checks for maledictions. So if I look at my opponent's list and I see, well, I'm against the Eldar player, I know he's going to use Will, I know he's going to use Guide, I know he's going to use Doom, whatever. I can kind of plan out how many he'll cast a turn.
Exactly.
And I can think, well, I can get 10 this game with Wrath, or I can get 12, or I think I can get maybe even close to 15.
Well, and one thing to remember is you do have the stratagem to swap in powers. So if they have 2 maledictions, and you have 2 maledictions in your list, cool, you swap in a third, make sure to cast it, and you're almost certainly going to score that 4 turns out of 5. And also a reminder for people that aren't familiar with the wording of the core rules, a power is manifested, which is what the Wrath of Magnus checks for. If you cast it and it's not denied, you don't need a valid target. That means if they went first and they cast no witchfires, you don't even have to expose anything. You literally can just roll Tzeentch's Firestorm behind a wall. Cool, it manifests, nothing happens because you have no valid targets. You still get your 1 point for Wrath of Magnus. Beautiful, beautiful. You can literally sit on your own deployment zone and just cast it. It's like, it's almost like to the last in the sense of you can score without any interaction at all. Yeah,
so
beautiful.
It's a pretty solid one. I obviously think you're going to be bringing that pretty much every game that you can.
Yeah. I really can't think of a single matchup because again, the army is like Eldari, where maybe they can out malediction you because they'll have Doom, they'll have Jinx, and maybe a third or whatever.
The mission where you burn objectives.
Yeah. Where you burn objectives.
I want to jump to that real quick. Obviously, Wrath is good.
Yeah.
But the mission where you burn objectives, a lot of people think that's not a very good mission, but it is. It is good. I
think Burn Empires is bad, so let's talk about that.
Right. So it's for those missions where there's a lot of objectives in no man's land.
Sure.
And I've used it on things like Data Scry Salvage before. And especially on player place terrain maps, you can close off enough objectives that you can look at the table and say, okay, I'm going to burn 12 points. Worth. I don't know if the wording changed just because I don't have it in front of me, but it used to be that you could have multiple units perform the action.
I think, let me double check on Bird Empires. That's a great question. Keep talking about it or talk about another secondary in the meantime.
Right. So you got to get your guys there. Your guys can try to burn the objective if they're there at the start of your next command phase. So you do have to wait until your next turn. You get 4 victory points and the objective is burned. If you can burn 3, that is absolutely a take because again, getting 12 on your secondaries is where you want.
That's amazing. So let's see here. The wording is 1 or more. Well, the great thing is it completes your next command phase or it completes at the end of the game. So that means potentially you can score 12 or 15 going bottom of turn 5. Literally, if you think you're going to table them, take this and you're just going to score all of your points in the last round or 2.
Like when I was playing Warpmeld Pact, I found there was a lot of situations where I'm like, well, I'm going to shove goats there anyways. I'm just going to try to get points while I'm doing it. It puts pressure on your opponent to really have to sometimes commit to a side of the board that they don't want to commit to. So if I'm looking at their shooting, I'm like, they want to reasonably go this way. I'm going to put my models over this. So there's a lot of times on like Vanguard deployments, your opponent will kind of pick the side of the board that they want to play to, and then it kind of ends up being Hammer and Anvil or Dawn of War, depending on that selection. You can look at what your opponent wants to do, and then you can manipulate where you're putting your models to force them to have to play to a side of the board that's their weaker side. That's why I really like it. I think it's a good objective, and I think people underrate it routinely, and those people oftentimes aren't bringing it in games worrying that they're not going to score those points. So they're not getting that experience in-game of using that objective.
Yeah.
I feel like
Well,
every time I use it, it's incredibly powerful.
I think part of the issue too is people look at a secondary like Burn Empires and they'll say, oh, the secondary is garbage. It's so bad. You can only take it in some missions, or you can only take in missions where objectives near deployment zone. I'm like, cool. You can just not pick it in the other games. Like there's like a secondary that's only situationally good is perfectly fine, especially in an army like Thousand Sons that has so many 3 other good secondaries. Again, there's nothing wrong with like, oh, a secondary is not an auto take and you have to think at the table. That's the point of the game. That's how you grow as a player. Taking secondaries like this, seeing when they're good. Don't be afraid to try it out. Again, it's not amazing. It's probably the weakest of the 4, but it's perfectly situationally fine. I think the other secondary that really spoke or stood out to me, well, it did speak to me too, like the Demonic Whispers, but Sorceress Prowess, which is you gain VP for killing Psycho characters, you gain VP for killing Psycho units, same as the last mission pack. But now you also gain 2 VP for every non-Psycho unit, just any unit that was destroyed in the Psychic phase, which I think this is fantastic. It's not a 15 usually, but I think it's a pretty reliable 10 in matchups where you're going to take it.
Yeah, there's just not a lot of those matchups.
Sure.
So
But like the great thing is you can always use your Cabal points. Like say you do a smite, you kill 4 out of 5 people, or like they're already 2 dead, you kill 2 more. Cool. Cabal just force that point through. Or I guess you could use a stratagem to make it flat 3. But I think there's just situations where, again, don't take it every matchup. But it's really the fact that you can score it against non-Psycho units too is really valuable because often, even in like a mixed Psycho army, there'll still be non-Psycho units. You can still farm it off them. Like Eldari, I think, are a great example of a good faction pick this against.
Yeah, sure. I mean, like there's a couple of options.
Yeah.
It's not bad at all.
Yeah.
Not as exciting as the other 2 I just mentioned. I think most.
Sure.
Of the
I think it's perfectly fine.
Kill stuff.
Yeah.
Like if you're a kill stuff army, and you want to kill stuff, and you have a lot of psychic, which thousands are just going to have a lot of psychic no matter your build.
Very likely. Very likely.
Yeah, you're. I mean, if you want to kill stuff, it's a kill stuff mission, and that's bad. It's not a bad place to be.
Yeah. And then the 4th one is, let's see, it was...
Is that the warp objectives one?
Yeah, warp objectives. Basically unchanged. You can only do it now if you control the objective, so it just makes like turn 4 or 5 you send a character. Less likely they can do it. It's still fine. Most of the time you're doing it with rubrics or scarabs that are going to control the objective anyway. Or even you can put it on an objective and then smite them off and start the secondary. Still plenty of options. You're still in a good spot with that.
I like that one. There are certain missions, like solid. Again, those a lot of objective missions. That's going to be a 12.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think in general it's one of those things where a lot of secondaries and other armies too have been changed to you have to control the objective. It's a benefit to some and nerf to other secondaries, but on the whole, I think it's fair, promotes more interaction. I'm perfectly happy with that one. On that note, let's go ahead and see who haven't we covered yet? We haven't covered Chaos Space Marines, which I don't want to dive too much into because rest assured, everyone, at Warhammer, made my name as a Chaos Space Marine player. We're going to cover so much Chaos Space Marines content over the coming weeks. But just a quick hit, Chaos Space Marines overall. Wallace, how are you feeling about the faction secondaries? What are some highlights to you?
I need to see more, and I've seen quite a few leaks. Yeah. I feel, this is my feeling, right? Sure. I feel like Chaos Space Marine are really going to struggle with the secondary game. I think there's a lot less obvious choices for them in general. And I think a lot of the objectives that look good for Chaos Space Marines are kill stuff objectives. So what that means to me is the way I want to build my Chaos Space Marine army probably is not going to be as horde-oriented or tricky.
Yeah.
I'm probably going to be trying to send in elite death squads to kill things to get me points, which is fine because I feel like a lot of the data sheets that we've seen so far suggest that that's what you want to do anyways. So like if I'm bringing Warp Talons or Possessed or Chosen or Demon Engines or whatever, I need to kill stuff anyways to win the game. So I think you take objectives that are about killing things because I feel like you can trade favorably with people.
Sure.
In terms of missions that they have to just kind of exist and get points for existing, which
Yeah.
are incredibly powerful, which like Death Guard have and Demons have now, and Thousand Suns have. It's part of why Thousand Suns are so strong. Secondary game is so strong.
Yeah.
Because there's less options for them there. Yeah. I think it does warp their playstyle more around being very lethal. Now, the good news is they do look lethal enough to make that work, but I do think they're going to struggle in terms of max scoring those secondaries for sure. I think it's going to be hard.
Yeah.
So.
And that makes complete sense. And that's one of those things where definitely as a Nephilim mission starts to take an effect in tournaments, we're really going to see, I think, some haves and have-nots in terms of secondaries. And again, this is one of those things where it's still early, and we're going to play test a bunch. We're going to give you more detailed breakdowns of all the secondaries in the coming weeks. My first impression is, as you say, a lot of killing stuff, not a lot of just exist and score points. I think of the secondaries for that reason. I really like the Word Bearers one, which is basically you exist in the center, you do an action. It's a really great name. It's Exalt the Dark Gods. It's very thematic, very fluffy. You gain bonuses if you do it with a Dark Apostle or a Master of Possession or a unit with an icon of the Dark Gods. Very fluffy. I like that one a lot because on missions with a central objective, you want to get to the center and control that anyway. And from initial leaks, again, we're going to have to get some playtesting in. But initial leaks, that Word Bearers are going to hit very hard in the center of the battlefield. So I'm a big fan of that one. I thought the Night Lords one was actually really cool. I don't know if you've seen that one, but it's kind of like, it's very similar to the Demon one, where you gain VP if enemies fail morale, you gain VP if they fall back, and you gain VP if they fail in action. Plus, you actually do a leadership check when you kill a unit, and you get a chance to gain additional VP on that front. Especially with Night Lords, again, I want to see the full codex to see what kind of leadership debuffs they have. But, I mean, it's Night Lords. I suspect they're going to have some pretty spicy leadership debuffs, which are going to make that pretty easy to proc in most matchups.
I feel like, again, just looking, because I did a quick look over all of them, the majority of them rely on you being able to kill things and send guys in to kill things. And I think that's the way they want Chaos Space Marines to work. And I think that's fine. They want you to do some wanton slaughter. They want you to do some wanton destruction. They want you to do stuff. They want you to do killing. They want the galaxy to burn. I will say, I think the one I thought was really interesting was the World Eaters one that was previewed in the White Dwarf. It's basically you select one of your characters, you select an opposing character, and you issue a challenge. So very thematic, very fluffy. And you gain 5 VP if you kill the character at all during the game. You gain 5 VP if your character killed their character. Let me check, there's a third condition. And you gain 5 VP if their character was killed just as a melee attack overall. And if you score all 3 of those, which means basically your character killed their character in melee, then you gain an actual CP on top of that. I love that. It's super fluffy. Some of these honestly feel more like Crusade agendas than match secondaries. So it's possible they ripped them straight from there, you know? Like
easily could be. I want to see what the codex comes out, because I'm sure the codex is going to have amazing Crusade stuff in there.
Well, here's what I'm going to do. They issue in a challenge against my Lord of Change. They charge into it with their special murder character that's going to murder my Lord of Change. I have my robe of Never Die. I have my +1 invuln robe. My robe, what's Impossible. I have my Impossible robe.
But that's impossible. You can't have a robe that doesn't let you die.
And I get down. I have Gaze of Fate going. All right. I have Gaze of Fate going. I get down to my last dice. Now, if I make the save, my model will live, but with like no wounds left, and he's gonna fight twice or something. So I'm gonna roll. I'm gonna fail on 2. I'm gonna re-roll with my robe of impossibleness. I'm gonna roll into a 1, and I'm gonna have to lose my Lord of Change to my robe on that roll of a 1.
So you don't die to a melee
attack. Because of his rule that he just is removed as a casualty. They get 10 less victory points because he didn't die to a melee attack and he didn't die to that guy. So that's my strategy. World Eaters.
Or if you face World Eaters, you put plasma pistols on your own guys, try to fire the plasma pistols. You can max score 5 if you kill yourself with a plasma shot. Easy game. You put a plasma pistol on a character, you summon a change caster with Gaze of Fate, you re-roll your hit roll just to try to get that 1 where you CP it. It's beautiful. You kill yourself. World Eaters player is very sad. Corn's happy. He gets a free skull. but the World Eaters player will be very sad. Yeah, no, the secondaries are definitely a mixed bag, but there's a lot of these things, like the Iron Warriors at one. On first glance, just seems like absolute choose from many words that will get us demonetized once we're eventually monetized. But I think that some of these are really situational, which is totally fine. Again, only pick them when the situation's right. And I think they're going to play the primary very well in terms of not keeping their scores low, putting durable bodies on objectives. So I'm really excited to get some reps with the codex.
Yeah, you just mentioned doing reps with a codex. Well, let's get some reps in with our 8th edition Chaos Demons book.
Never played it before. Sounds like an amazing codex.
Yeah, I don't know what to call this game yet, but it's real simple. I'm going to read off the flavor text for one of our lovely Hellforged artifacts. And based on what I say, you're going to have to guess.
Oh, guess the relic from the flavor text. Wow, that's amazing.
Yes. Okay. And the viewers, you all do this as well. Like, see if you get it right.
Okay.
I'm
nervous. That sounds tough.
You don't get to look either.
That would be a little bit unfair. Much like playing Tyranids these days, but let's keep going.
Ooh, this is a tough one. Some of these have their name right in the, like, obviously in the title.
Sure. And just skip over, or say like relic name or something, or skip past that. If the flavor text mentions the relic name.
Yes. So here, I've got a really good one right here.
Okay. I'm excited.
The glutton's blade gulps down the souls of its victims before invigorating the body of its wielder.
Too easy. That's the Soul Eater blade. Easy game.
Oh, well, you got it wrong. It's the Soul Stealer blade.
Oh, come on.
0 for 1. 0 for 1. We'll come up with a name for this. I'm going to start doing this every Warped
That's
Wednesday.
true. So what's the soul what blade?
Soul Stealer blade.
Soul Stealer. But here's the thing: if you've eaten someone's soul, you've clearly eaten someone's soul. You've clearly stolen the soul. You can't eat a soul.
No, it's not. You could have bought it.
Bargained with them. Actually, bargaining with them does sound very demonic.
At the start of this very episode, I mentioned how I had an infernal court that his whole thing was about bargaining and feeding their soul to their throne, Mechanicum. So, yeah,
Beautiful.
You're already off to a 0-1.
Okay.
So, all right, that was all we had for you today, folks.
Cool.
I really appreciate you tuning in again.
Cool. I've gone winless now in this little game we're playing, which hopefully won't go winless at the tournament this weekend. Everyone, thank you so much for joining us for this magical 6th episode of Warped Wednesday, and we are looking forward to seeing you next week. All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.